GMP Detox session, and I was asked to do a session about SAP validation. It will not only focus on SAP validation, it could be applied to any ERP system, but also to MES and LIMS systems. And we will also come to a point where we'll talk about process mapping and data flow diagrams, which is very important if we talk about an enterprise resource planning system. Usually I can also sometimes say I do validate an SAP system or any ERP system, but basically it's not totally correct. I do not validate an ERP system or an MES or an LIMS system. I do validate processes, and I just start here with an Annex 11 from the EMA, European one. And the principle section in this document is quite very interesting. They start the sentence with, this annex applies to all forms of computerized systems used as part of GMP regulated activities. It could also be GXP, medical devices, and so on. But they use the term computerized systems. The sentence that I highlighted is the interesting one. The application should be validated. It's not saying the computerized system should be validated. For sure, it is in a wider context validated, also together with the suppliers. Validation is always a shared responsibility, but the application should be validated. And just keep that in mind if we talk about SAP. What I see in most of the SAP or in general ERP projects as a general mistake, that the starting point is always the functionality of the system. So you might meet SAP consultants, they will go through the modules, MM, PI, whatever, QM, and so on. And their starting point are the functions, and then they go into the processes. One of your missions should be process first. You first have a look on the processes. It could also be, and I suggest that to some customers, that they do a pre-project, first mapping the processes before you directly start with the implementation of a system. So you can do that independently to map your processes properly. If you do that during a project implementation stage, that could cost a lot of money and effort. So what a lot of people do not know is that SAP itself, they call it life science. I do not really like this expression, but they have a kind of a white paper. You see that here, it's 46 pages. It is from 2013. I have heard, so I do not know it, that SAP also prepared one for the new S/4HANA. So this is 10 years old. Some parts are absolutely great, very beneficial for your SAP validation project. Other suppliers also have something similar in place, very often starting as a Part 11 white paper or something like this. Yeah, know the rules. Yes, it's written by the supplier. They don't know the rules, basically. And if you go through this document, there are some financial things like, and then also regulations, Part 11, and so on. It also gives you a good overview what you can do and how far you want to go. There are also other standards in place, ISO 95 or ISO 88, going down on shop floor level, but how do you want to manage your bills of materials, your documents, your routings, your master recipe. So if you would be in GMP or CGMP, how to handle your master batch records. If you have an ERP system, a lot of companies just map their ordering number and then it goes to a master batch record or device master record in paper form, or it's managed in an EDMS. So basically, in a good implementation of an ERP system, you can also go on this kind of MES level, directly managing also your GMP documents. Basically, it's possible Sometimes it's in the scope of a project, or sometimes it's simply forgotten, which is really a pity. So then they show here also to you a validation example, or their approach with that IQ, OQ, PQ stuff. Okay, it was written in 2013. You should not use it anymore. I think it's okay what they show you, but you can do that much better. What is really interesting is this document, and I'm sorry, I must scroll down a little bit. What they have done, that's quite very nice, is that, for example, for pharma, part 211, they have taken the SAP modules, as you see it here, and now we validate the application. So if you say we want to manage our approved vendor list, that you see that this is in module MM, for example. If you want to have some parts in quality management, the goods receipt inspection, for example, then you will find it in here. It does not work anymore in S4, but that's a different story. But you see that quite very good that they started to map the functionality to the regulations. That was well done. Funny or not, they have done it for part 211, pharmaceutical products, and quite very interesting, for part 820, medical devices. So if you want to manage your bills of materials, which is a part of the device master record or of the design history files or whatever, your document controls, again, approved vendor list, barcodes, management like traceability and so on, it's all in there. Funny story of that is that SAP is basically a German company, and they mapped the US FDA regulations, part 211, part 820, but not the European ones, which are written in the European Ultralex Volume 4, for example, part Volume 4. Quite very interesting. So it's a little bit American based, but you find a lot of information in here. Also, you could use it within your SAP project. They did a list of critical transactions. It could be complete, maybe it's not complete, but you see the most important transactions, so activities done in the software. If you execute something. And I think that's quite very interesting if you later think about functional system testing or doing the user acceptance testing, that you know what are the critical transactions which should be tested to create material, change material, delete materials in combination, for example, with audit trails, if you think so that you need them and so on. So that's quite very interesting. Regarding Europe, and PICS, they just added Annex 11 requirements, exactly like the chapters are in Annex 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. What is quite very interesting, audit trails, the European audit trail. I have another GMP Detox session about the US FDA Part 11 audit trail and the European one written down in Annex 11. That's quite very funny to see that. This section is comparable to clauses. Yes, maybe. The exception is that Annex 11 especially requires a reason for change. Yes, and they do not track the first initial entry. They start tracking it with the audit trail from the first change. And that's quite very interesting, because they say SAP Business Suite is using a comment field. But there's a huge difference between a comment field and a reason for change, because what I cannot really read here, that the comment field is mandatory, that it's giving a selection of different, in kind of a choice list, what are the reasons for changes, or writing mistakes or something like this. So honestly, SAP does not fulfill here the requirements of the pharmaceutical industry for Europe. They try to bypass that with the comment field, but in every SAP project, you need to customize that you comply with GMP regulations in Europe. but also in the US, there are also some problems with that. But again, great work. They also do that usually like for Q7 if you produce APIs and so on. And for sure, there's the Part 11 white paper. Anyhow, this document, maybe not very well known, serves as a good basis if you want to start an SAP validation project. So again, I just show here the information complying with global ERP systems. I was able to download it for free. Just use Google. Another thing, a little bit more modern, is about SAP Digital Manufacturing. I'm still a little bit waiting that digital manufacturing really serves as an MES system. You should know that SAP tries to go into the market on the MES level since, I would say, 15 years with XMII, MII, whatever solutions they have created. Now they tried again with digital manufacturing. I had some projects with that. I still think it needs some time that the grade of this solution can really come on an MES level. But this is quite a very good document written talking about digital manufacturing. What I really liked about that here is, maybe that's not the standard approach, we must go to page 11, is, where is it? Here, a V model. Ha, quite very interesting. The V model shown here is quite very good. It shows requirements. Not like this IQ, OQ, PQ stuff. Quality gates, release decisions, and then they apply an agile workflow into it here. They also reference to Jira, test cases in Jira, and in X-Ray, it's a Jira plugin for test planning and test management. Pretty cool. We have a business partner who is subject matter expert in that. And this is quite very cool. It's not showing that IQ, OQ, PQ bollocks. It's really showing how you can run such an ERP validation project, supported by tools like GAMP 5 2nd edition is announcing it, with the different sprint deliveries, the deployment management, release management. So it's not only requirements, it goes much further with the different system landscapes that you should have in here. And I was wondering a little bit, because they go to Atlassian Jira, maybe also a little bit to Confluence and to X-Ray, but quite a very interesting and good approach. If I go back to the older document from SAP, but I must say that's also a quite very good solution. Or it could work. We have qualified that tool. It's called Solution Manager. It's provided directly by SAP. And in Solution Manager, I will show that later. You can also create requirements, design. It's based also on ITIL approaches, building, testing, deployment, and so on. So even in 2013, they reference to the Solution Manager. If you have a bigger SAP solution, you should also think about to put in Solution Manager, or having a mixture between Solution Manager, Atlassian Jira, Confluence, or if you prefer Microsoft with the DevOps, formerly Team Foundation Server or something like this. Anything like this could work, but you should know your implementation landscape or something like this. So digital manufacturing here, quite very cool. That's a V model that was not just copy and paste from Google, quite very good. And just as a negative example, I switched to that. I just Googled for that. So the following examples are just random, but this is exactly what I was saying, the stupid thing. Here you see people have written something like that without having any clue about your and ours industry. So it started with a validation master plan. A validation master plan is an overall document, or could be an overall document. So they mean a validation plan. They write approaches based on GAMP 5 framework, which is totally not true for any of this thing. User requirements specification now is specifying requirements. FRS never existed. It was functional specification. It was replaced 1.5 years ago. And here again, IQ, OQ, PQ, something, if you compare that with that level of detail and something like this, so there are a lot of SAP integrators on the market. If you see that slide, my only recommendation is run. It's very simple. This is something that will not work for you. Solution Manager, quite very cool. Sorry, this slide is in German, but I really liked it, from mrs-consultant.com. I never worked with them, but this is pretty cool that you see what you can manage in Solution Manager: incident management, change management, the landscape, the transport management. So if you move it from from a test validation or queue environment into the productive environment, or if you have a staging environment, this is quite very important, especially if you work with iterations and sprints behind of that. That's pretty cool. They also say they can do process management, but again, process first. For SAP, mapping processes, it's not their core competence, and not GMP regulations at all, and so on. We must be fair. I cannot develop SAP on ABAP, so everybody has his role and his responsibilities and duties and the individual knowledge. So process management is a little bit weak, but also here we find something new that I want to show you. Another great solution map that you just get today an impression. This session cannot replace professional consultancy, but I just want to give you an overview, the best as I can do in very short. So here again, Solution Manager, great picture of mindsquare.de, process management, release management, project management, requirements management, even I would say change management. There's also additional tool which never worked properly, dear SAP. It's called Charm, for change control and test management. I did qualify this year Solution Manager for an internal use for change management and so on. It works. Usability is sometimes okay. Thinking about that, IT guys work with that, but for an end user, maybe it's a little bit tricky, old-fashioned. Anyhow, maybe I'm too strict for that. Okay, I liked also that from Kelton. I don't know where they are located or something like, but I just like that. Our approach to SAP S/4HANA implementation, great, because the first step is understanding current business processes, IT landscape, and vision. Map the processes. That's number one. Again, you might do that in a first project level before you decide we want to implement SAP or another ERP system. All of them are great. Basically, it depends on the implementation approach. And in the meantime, since 1.5 years, more and more I hear about BPMN, which is also provided in a kind of a combination, something like this. It's a mapping, business process modeling and notation tool. You see that, quite very impressive, what you can do with events and collaboration diagrams and so on. Having said that, also working in project with it, I do not have enough of experience today to say it's great or not. It's an option. I think it's worth to try it if that works properly. And I also heard that you are able to integrate SAP transactions, like you have seen in here. So it could be nice. I also have seen some of diagrams like this one. There I would have so many complaints that the boxes are not numbered. It's not showing the people who are doing it, so exactly the roles or what are the preconditions. So if this is one of the results, then this is not detailed enough for me to do a GMP data flow analysis or something like this. It's very, very simplified. So again, now something that always could work, and I do it very quickly, I know that, but again, you should get an overview on that. Yeah, if you want to validate any system or your SAP system, at the starting point, everything is about business process mapping and having data flow diagrams. You will find that now in the ISPE GAMP 5 second edition in the management appendix, in a new appendix, which is called M12, critical thinking. Critical thinking, and it's not a risk-based approach if you have a solution like SAP or any other, and you take the functions and you define for each of the functions, is it GMP relevant, yes or no? And even this decision is done by someone who does not have the GMP process in mind or GMP understanding or something like this. That makes no sense. In GAMP 5, you will find 3 references to the good practice guides for records and data integrity. Yes, something was written. Enabling innovation, great. I also have another GMP Detox session about the good practice guide enabling innovation. Fantastic document provided by the ISP. If we now look into GAMP 5, it's saying create business process mapping and data flow diagrams. And here, maybe if there's any space for criticism on the new GAMP 5, which is fantastic, they do not give any examples, tools, or methods how to do business process mapping. So we will do that here quickly, because you should also start your SAP or even your MES, your LIMS, your EDMS project with something like this. And sometimes I find it very funny that you find in a regulated company 1,200 SOPs, but there's no SOP how we do process mapping, process management, maybe sometimes for project management or definitely for risk management, but not for process management. So if sometimes you see something like this, is this a business process mapping? No, it's not. It's just showing you a structural overview of things that happen, but it's not showing who is doing that, what are the inputs, what are the outputs, and so on. So if I get something like this in a project, I must say, okay, we must refine it. We must make it better. I love the example or the methodology of SIPOC. SIPOC stands for Supplier Input, Process Output, Customers. In trainings and consultancy services, I start with an easy example, the pizza order. Everybody of you have most probably ordered a pizza or something else. And then sometimes people say, it's an easy process. I take my telephone, I call them, and they bring the pizza. If you look here into the details, we do not have the time today to go into details of SIPOC, but if you see something like this, great. Yeah, then you see exactly how that could work. In details, SIPOC is very powerful, really cool. I love it. There are some basic rules how to do it. So if you, and this is sometimes, even if a customer have SIPOC, it's performed not in a correct way. If you have here a row, person A and person B, there are some rules. I just want to show it quickly that the person B here, who is then the customer, is becoming the supplier. If you have an output here in the first row, A1 and A2, it becomes the input of the second step. It could also be the third step or so on, but there are some basic rules how you should handle a SIPOC. I see that very often wrongly executed. What is very interesting here, also in the input elements, you can also say there are procedures, work instructions, raw data, master data, GMP data like CPPs, CQAs, critical process parameters, critical quality attributes, critical material attributes, maybe also equipment. What are the inputs? Verbal. Verbal would be a very high data integrity risk. Paper, not good. Barcode scanner or an automated interface, cool. Okay, so you can even see the transcriptions and the the migration of data from step 1 to step 2, how is that done? So quite very powerful if you map processes like this. And also here, the second part is that I always suggest, or that I try to perform, is this is also a V model, but it's a data flow driven one. So from the Japanese language, sometimes gurus for quality management, right? So the Gemba walk. Gemba is Japanese and means that you are at the place where it happens. And I try to go through the processes in person or with the people, with the subject matter experts on the process through the different process steps. And they are always a little bit similar. Yeah? On the left, you have the instruction types, you have the record report types, you might have data monitoring attributes, critical parameters, methods, recipes, which are in the PLC system. You record raw data. Out of this raw data, I also have a GMP detox session about data information records, for example, that you can see that how information is provided until it ends in a GXP record. In combination with the SIPOC methodology, you can also have a data flow diagram of your company. That's also important, and you should do that before you think about ERP system, that you know your processes, so material flow, personal flow, and all that sort of stuff, but also the data flow. Sometimes I find it very funny if people want to present a company, they show to you the org chart or the hierarchy of the documents and so on. Whoever you are asking, the CEO or the quality manager or whoever, they will show you different diagrams of the company. IT guy will show you an IT infrastructure topology or drawings or something like this. Facility manager shows you the drawings of the buildings and so on. But what is the data flow? Yeah, so that's quite very interesting also to do that before you start such a project. You can use that here. I just have given you an example that you say what comes in step 1, 2, 3. How is data transferred? So that's the letters A, B, C, D. Is it manual? Is it automatic? Whatever. And then you can also have a few on data integrity risks. Another example that I want to show you, I know we are very fast today, is what I have done for another customer. It could happen that you map the processes like here. We were putting papers on the wall, going through the process step by step. What is in the system, what should be in the system, how is the transfer from A to B and so on. So that was quite very funny. I think we had 2 or 3 walls full of that information. Somebody was putting then it into the in a MS Visio. We have taken screenshots, or if there have been some paper printouts or manually created labels and so on. Please do not expect that this happens in 1 or 2 hours. I think it took us at least a week and then to refine it and to ask again and so on. So this is critical thinking. This is business process mapping, and this is data flow diagrams that must be done. And that should be done before you start your SAP project. I think we have seen it quite very well. Where was it? Sorry. Here, understanding current business processes. Again, if you ask then 2, 3 people, how does the process look like? You get 5 answers. It will be not easy to do an ERP project on such a weak or flexible basis. Okay, so that was a longer GMP detox session today. I tried to show you some important SAP stuff with some sources directly from SAP, with some figures from solution providers to talk about Solution Manager. Great tool. You must configure it. You must qualify it. You can also use Jira, as you have seen, and X-Ray or other testing tools. They are also great. SAP is in the moment pushing also this BPMN solution for process mapping. we could collect experience about that or from that. And then I wanted to show you the SIPOC methodology and methodology for data flow diagrams. I know it can't be complete. In short, you cannot gain this knowledge on YouTube. That's impossible. That was not my intention. Okay, so I hope you found it very useful, interesting, with some new inputs or with some new ideas. You can also share your ideas with me in here in the comments of YouTube or also on LinkedIn. And so if you start your SAP project, do not start directly with the system and not directly looking on functions and the modules. Think about how to create your validation approach, your roadmap, how to come there, that your real business processes are in the system, and later you validate your processes. Again, we started with Annex 11, we validate the application. We do not do system testing, which should be done by SAP, and they do that quite very good. We are looking on the processes. Okay, have a great day. Thanks so much.